I don't see any existing story matching your request in the search results. I'll create an original story, following your detailed instructions. My name is Marion, and at 67 years old, I thought I knew what the rest of my life would look like. After 40 years of teaching elementary school and raising my daughter Amanda, I settled into a comfortable retirement in our family mansion after my husband Richard passed away. I invited Amanda, her husband Greg, and my grandchildren to live with me. We were happy, or so I thought until that Sunday dinner, when Amanda looked at our guests and said, "Mom's room stinks like old people." I stayed quiet, but something inside me broke. If you've ever felt disrespected by someone you sacrificed everything for, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe for what happened next. I spent my entire adult life in a classroom teaching second graders to read and write. Those 40 years flew by in a blur of spelling tests, parent-teacher conferences, and watching hundreds of children grow. But nothing compared to raising my own daughter, Amanda. Richard and I had Amanda later in life. She was our miracle baby, our only child. Richard built a successful real estate development company while I taught, and by the time Amanda was 10, we had saved enough to buy what I still call the mansion, a 6-bedroom colonial on 3 acres with a pool and garden. Richard was diagnosed with heart disease in his 60s, but managed it well until 5 years ago, when a sudden heart attack took him from us. The grief was overwhelming. The house felt enormous and empty without his booming laugh and constant projects. "Mom, why don't we move in with you?" Amanda suggested 3 months after the funeral. "Jackson and Lily love this house, and it would be silly for you to rattle around here all alone. Plus, we could help with maintenance." It seemed like the perfect solution. Amanda was 42, Greg 45, and my grandchildren, Jackson and Lily, were 15 and 12. Having them fill the house with noise and life again felt right. Richard would have wanted it. The first year was wonderful. We shared meals, celebrated holidays together, and I found joy in being part of their daily lives. I helped Lily with her science homework and attended Jackson's basketball games. Greg fixed things around the house just like Richard used to. Amanda and I would have coffee together most mornings before she left for her marketing job. But gradually, things began to shift. Amanda became impatient with me. What started as occasional sighs when I told the same story twice evolved into eye rolls and cutting remarks. "Mom, nobody wants to hear about your student from 30 years ago," she'd say when I shared memories at dinner. Greg never contradicted her. He was quiet by nature, but his silence felt like complicity. The grandchildren noticed. Jackson started making excuses not to help me with gardening. Lily stopped coming to my room for our special reading time. My bedroom had always been my sanctuary. After Richard died, I kept it mostly the same with his reading chair still by the window. His photos watched over me from the dresser. My books filled the shelves, and I displayed treasures we'd collected during our 50 years together, small reminders of a life well lived. Amanda started to exclude me from family decisions. They would discuss vacation plans at dinner without asking for my input. When Amanda hosted her book club, I wasn't invited to join, even though I had been a member before Richard died. "We're just talking about modern books, Mom. You probably wouldn't be interested," she'd explain. I tried harder. I cooked Amanda's favorite meals from her childhood. I offered to watch the kids when she and Greg wanted date nights. I even paid for more than my fair share of household expenses, though Richard had left me financially secure. The inheritance arrangement was straightforward. Richard left everything to me with the understanding that it would pass to Amanda eventually. The house, the investment accounts, and his company's shares would all be hers someday. I had always been transparent about this with her, but the knowledge of her future inheritance seemed to change something in her. It was as if she had already claimed ownership of everything, including my place in the family. Amanda and Greg began taking luxury vacations without inviting me along. They renovated parts of the house without consulting me first. New furniture appeared, family heirlooms disappeared into storage. Greg drove a new sports car, and Amanda's closet filled with designer clothes. One afternoon, I overheard Amanda talking with her friends in the garden. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but their voices carried through my open window as I was reading. "It's getting harder, living with Mom," Amanda complained. "She's so stuck in her ways. Yesterday, she spent 20 minutes telling us about some student from the 80s. I almost fell asleep at the table." Her friend laughed. "That's what happens. My mother-in-law is the same way." "At least yours has her own house," Amanda replied. "Sometimes I wonder how long we'll have to wait before we can truly make this place our own. Mom could live another 20 years. The words stung like a physical slap. I closed my window quietly and sat on my bed, heart pounding. Later that month, I overheard Greg on the phone discussing business troubles. His construction company was struggling with a lawsuit from a dissatisfied client. "Don't worry," he assured whoever was on the line. "We have a safety net. Marion's inheritance will sort everything out eventually." My role in the house diminished daily. When we took family photos for Christmas cards, Amanda positioned me on the edge, easy to crop out. At dinner, my dietary preferences were forgotten, though Amanda remembered that Jackson didn't like onions and Lily avoided dairy. Winter came and I caught a terrible flu. For 2 days, I stayed in bed with a high fever. No one checked on me until I managed to text Amanda asking for medicine. She sent Lily up with Tylenol and ginger ale, but didn't come herself. "Mom's busy planning their anniversary trip," Lily explained, not meeting my eyes. My friend Barbara noticed the change during her monthly visits. "Marion, honey, are you happy here? They don't seem to treat you like the lady of the house anymore." "They're just busy." I defended them. "Amanda has a demanding job and the kids have so many activities. It's natural they have their own lives." But Barbara wasn't convinced. "Richard wouldn't like seeing you pushed to the sidelines. This was your home first." I brushed off her concerns. Amanda was my only child. Of course there would be adjustments living together. All families had their issues. Wasn't it better to have minor irritations than to live alone? As the months passed, even the grandchildren began mimicking their parents' attitudes. Jackson would sigh dramatically when I asked him to repeat something I hadn't heard clearly. Lily stopped sharing details about school. I found myself spending more time in my room, avoiding interactions that might annoy Amanda. I felt like a guest who had overstayed her welcome, rather than the homeowner. The financial dynamics troubled me too. While I continued paying property taxes and most utilities, Amanda and Greg made decisions about renovations without consulting me. The isolation grew. Richard would have been furious to see how things had changed. He had always insisted on respect in our household. Had I failed him by allowing this situation to develop, I spent all day preparing for our monthly Sunday dinner. These occasions were special when Amanda invited her in-laws, Joseph and Diana, plus Greg's brother Tim and his wife Sarah. I wanted everything to be perfect. I made Richard's famous pot roast, the recipe he'd inherited from his mother. I set the dining room table with our best china crystal glasses that had been wedding gifts and fresh flowers from the garden. I even polished the silver candle holders that usually gathered dust in the cabinet. The evening started pleasantly. Joseph brought a nice bottle of wine and Diana complimented my table setting. The conversation flowed easily through the appetizers and main course as we discussed the children's activities and neighborhood news. "Jackson's basketball team might go to state finals," Greg announced proudly. "And Lily got the lead in the school play," Amanda added, squeezing our granddaughter's shoulder. "That's wonderful, sweetie," I said to Lily. "I'd love to help you practice your lines." During dessert, Tim mentioned my upcoming birthday. 68 is a big one, Marion. Any special plans?" Before I could answer, Amanda jumped in. "We should do something nice for Mom, maybe a dinner at Giovanni's." "Actually," I said, feeling a rare moment of confidence, "I was thinking about using some of my savings to update my bathroom. The tub is getting difficult to climb into. I thought a walk-in shower would be more practical at my age." The table fell quiet for a moment. Then Amanda looked at Diana and rolled her eyes. "Mom, your room already stinks like old people. A new bathroom won't fix that." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Joseph's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Sarah looked down at her plate. No one spoke. Jackson let out an uncomfortable laugh, quickly silenced by Tim's sharp look. Lily's face flushed with embarrassment. Greg cleared his throat but said nothing to defend me. He simply reached for his wine glass, avoiding my eyes. Diana attempted to salvage the moment. "I think a walk-in shower sounds practical. We installed one last year, didn't we, Joseph?" But the damage was done. I felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. My face burned with humiliation, but I forced a smile. "Perhaps you're right, Amanda. It's just an idea." Somehow we finished the meal. The conversation resumed stilted and careful. I served coffee and tried to focus on Joseph's story about their recent trip to Florida, but inside I was crumbling. When everyone left, I cleaned up alone while Amanda and Greg watched television in the family room. No one mentioned the comment. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of how deeply those words had cut. I retreated to my stinky room and closed the door. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I looked at Richard's smiling face in our wedding photo and finally let the tears come. "What would you do?" I whispered to his image. "When did our daughter become someone who could say such a thing?" I couldn't sleep that night. The comment replayed in my mind along with all the small slights and dismissals of the past few years. By morning, something had shifted inside me. The pain was still there, but alongside it grew a quiet determination. The next day, I visited Richard's grave at Oakwood Cemetery. We had purchased a double plot, and my name was already engraved next to his, waiting for the final date to be added. "I don't know what to do," I said aloud, touching the cool marble. "I've tried to be patient to understand, but I don't recognize our daughter anymore." A light breeze rustled the oak trees overhead, and for a moment I felt Richard's presence. He had always been my backbone when I wavered my courage when I doubted myself. The following morning, I called John Peterson, our family attorney, who had handled Richard's will and had been our friend for 30 years. "Marion, good to hear from you. How's everything with Amanda and the family?" John asked when his secretary put me through. "That's actually why I'm calling. I need to discuss some options regarding the house and the inheritance arrangements." John's tone shifted. "I see. Why don't you come in tomorrow? We should talk in person." In his office, surrounded by law books and the familiar scent of leather chairs, I explained the situation, including the Sunday dinner incident. "Richard made certain provisions you might not be fully aware of," John said after listening carefully. "While it's true that Amanda is the eventual beneficiary, you have complete control during your lifetime. You can sell the house if you want to. You can restructure the trust. Richard was very clear that your comfort and dignity were the priority." "I never thought I'd consider such options," I admitted. "But I can't continue living where I'm not respected." That night, while Amanda and Greg were at a work function, I searched online for housing alternatives. I'd always loved the beach, something Richard and I had talked about for retirement before his health declined. There was a coastal community about an hour away with cottages designed for seniors, a clubhouse, and activities. For the next week, I said nothing to Amanda or the family. I continued making breakfast and attending Jackson's games and living as if nothing had changed. But inside, a plan was forming. I contacted Susan Brennan, a real estate agent John recommended. We met for coffee at a cafe across town. "I'd like to look at properties in Seashore Haven," I told her. "Something small but comfortable. One level with space for visitors occasionally." Susan showed me listings on her tablet. "There's a lovely 2-bedroom cottage available now. Ocean view renovated kitchen, community pool, and clubhouse access. Would you like to see it?" The moment I stepped into the cottage, I knew. Sunlight streamed through wide windows facing the Atlantic. The living room was cozy but not cramped. The master bedroom had space for my favorite pieces from home, and the second bedroom could accommodate grandchildren visits. The kitchen was modern but warm with blue tile that reminded me of a vacation Richard and I took to Greece. "This is it," I told Susan. "How quickly can we close?" With my financial situation, the purchase could be expedited. I made an offer that day, contingent on selling the mansion. Over the next 2 weeks, I secretly packed important documents, irreplaceable mementos, and family photos. I opened a new bank account at a different bank and transferred a significant portion of my savings. I met with a financial advisor John recommended to restructure my estate plan. Richard's company's shares, which provided substantial dividends, were placed in a new trust with conditions. Meanwhile, Amanda announced they were planning a 3-week European vacation, a once-in-a-lifetime trip for the whole family. "Are you sure you'll be all right alone, Mom?" she asked, though her tone suggested she'd already assumed my answer. "Of course, dear, I'll be fine. You all deserve this special time together." I helped them prepare, suggesting places to visit, even booking their airport car service. The day of their departure arrived, and I stood in the driveway, waving as their loaded SUV pulled away, Jackson and Lily waving from the back window. When the car disappeared around the corner, I took a deep breath. "Now, Richard," I whispered. "Now we act." The movers arrived within the hour. I had scheduled everything, meticulously paying extra for their discretion and efficiency. "Just these marked boxes and furniture pieces," I instructed the foreman, pointing to the items I'd selected. "All personal belongings, Richard's chair, our bed, my grandmother's vanity, and the boxes containing photos, books, and memories." While they worked, I went to Richard's study, which had remained largely untouched since his death. In the bottom drawer of his desk, beneath old contracts, I found an envelope addressed to me in his handwriting marked, "Open when needed." With trembling fingers, I broke the seal. "My dearest Marion," it began. "If you're reading this, you've reached a crossroads. I've always worried about Amanda's sense of entitlement. I hoped maturity would temper it, but if you found this letter, I was wrong. Remember what we always taught: her respect isn't optional in a family. If she's forgotten that lesson, you have my blessing to do what's necessary. Our love for her doesn't require martyrdom on your part. Be brave, my love. Your happiness matters." Tears streamed down my face as Richard's voice seemed to fill the room. He had anticipated this possibility. His permission freed something within me. I walked through each room of the house we had shared for decades, saying goodbye to the spaces where we had built our life together, the kitchen where we danced while washing dishes, the living room where we'd opened Christmas presents with a toddler, Amanda, the garden where he'd proposed a second time on our 30th anniversary. "The mansion is officially on the market," John confirmed when we met that afternoon. "Given the location and condition, we expect multiple offers quickly." "And Amanda can't block the sale," I verified. "No, the property is solely in your name. Richard was very clear about that." My new cottage welcomed me with afternoon sunlight warming its wooden floors. The moving truck arrived, and I directed the placement of each piece, creating a space that honored my past while embracing a new chapter. The coastal community bustled with activity. During my first week, neighbor Joyce invited me to join their book club. Frank from 2 doors down brought homemade sourdough bread. The community center offered yoga painting classes and movie nights. I set up the second bedroom with twin beds, a shelf of young adult books, and a television with gaming console, hoping Jackson and Lily might visit someday. In my new sunlit kitchen, I unpacked Richard's favorite coffee mug and placed it beside mine. "We did it," I told his memory. "A fresh start." John called with news that the mansion had received multiple offers above the asking price. The Hendersons offered $50,000 over all cash short escrow. "Do you want to accept?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Let's proceed." "Marion." John's voice turned serious. "Have you thought about Amanda's reaction? This will be quite a shock." "I've thought of little else," I admitted. "But sometimes love means making difficult decisions. I established an educational trust for Jackson and Lily, ensuring they could attend college without financial strain. For Amanda and Greg, I created a more complex arrangement. They would receive a monthly stipend, but the bulk of the inheritance now came with conditions demonstrated respect, regular family involvement, and financial counseling. My first night in my cottage, I sat on my small patio watching waves crash against the shore. The salt air filled my lungs, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight of judgment and criticism lift from my shoulders. The freedom was intoxicating. I slept deeply that night, lulled by distant waves instead of muffled arguments or late-night television. Amanda called from Paris the following week, unaware of the seismic changes. "How are you, Mom? The house is okay." "Everything is exactly as it should be," I replied truthfully. "Enjoy your trip. We'll talk when you return." I chose not to disrupt their vacation with my news. They would discover it soon enough. The call came at 3 a.m., 11 days before they were scheduled to return. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" Amanda's voice was shrill, panicked. "Our neighbor Carol just texted that there are new people moving into our house. She said there's a sold sign on the lawn." I had prepared for this moment, rehearsed my words carefully. "Amanda, we need to discuss this when you return. I've scheduled a meeting with John Peterson the day after you get back." "Are you out of your mind? That's our home. You can't sell it without talking to us." "Actually, I can. It was my house and I sold it. We'll discuss everything else when you return." "I won't have this conversation while you're shouting at me from another continent." I hung up, despite her continued protests. My phone immediately rang again, then again. Text messages flooded in from both Amanda and Greg. I turned off my phone and watched the sunrise over the ocean. 3 days later, they arrived at John's office, having cut their trip short. Amanda's eyes were puffy from crying or lack of sleep. Greg looked calculating, already strategizing damage control. Jackson appeared confused, while Lily seemed strangely calm. "Before we begin," I said, taking control of the meeting, "I want to make something clear. This decision wasn't impulsive or vengeful. It was necessary." "Necessary," Amanda exploded. "How is selling our family home without a word to any of us necessary?" "It stopped being a family home the moment you started treating me as an unwelcome guest," I replied steadily. "The breaking point was when you told your dinner guests that my room stinks like old people." Greg's head snapped toward Amanda. Apparently she hadn't shared that detail with him. "That was one comment, Mom. One stupid comment, and you sold our house over it." "No," I corrected. "I sold my house after years of increasing disrespect and isolation. That comment was simply the final confirmation that I needed to make a change." John cleared his throat. "I have documents outlining the new financial arrangements Marion has established." I had brought recordings of some of Amanda's more hurtful comments, saved from family gatherings when I'd used my phone to take videos. I played one where she told a friend, "We're just waiting for Mom to either move to a home or pass on before we renovate." Amanda's face crumpled as her own voice filled the room. "You spied on me," she whispered. "I preserved evidence of how you speak about me when you think I won't know," I corrected. "There's a difference." John presented the new financial structure. The sale proceeds had purchased my cottage outright, with the remainder invested. The educational trust for the grandchildren was irrevocable. The monthly stipend for Amanda and Greg would begin immediately to help them secure new housing. The larger inheritance now came with behavioral conditions. "This is elder abuse," Greg muttered, studying the documents. "We could challenge this." "You could try," John replied calmly. "But Marion has full legal capacity verified by 2 independent physicians. The original will give her complete control during her lifetime, and frankly, the recordings wouldn't help your case." Amanda's tears turned to anger, then calculation, and finally to a hollow realization of what she'd lost, through her own actions. "Where are you living?" she finally asked, her voice small. "I've bought a cottage at Seashore Haven. It's peaceful, it's mine, and it doesn't stink." Greg attempted several angles to salvage their financial position, but John deflected each one. The decision was final, the documents ironclad. "I'm still your mother," I told Amanda as the meeting concluded. "I still love you, but our relationship will now operate with clear boundaries and mutual respect, or it won't operate at all." They left without resolution, Amanda sobbing into Greg's shoulder, the children trailing behind looking shell-shocked. Jackson paused at the door. "Grandma, are you okay?" he asked quietly. "I'm better than I've been in years," I told him honestly. "You're welcome to visit any time." He nodded before following his parents. The week that followed was silent. I settled into my new community, joined the book club, and started volunteering at the local library. The absence of constant criticism made each day brighter. Then Lily appeared at my door one afternoon, dropped off by a friend's mother. "I just wanted to see where you live now," she explained hesitantly. "Mom doesn't know I came." I showed her the cottage, the ocean view, my little garden starting to take shape. "It's nice," she said. "It suits you better than the big house." "Would you like to stay for dinner?" I asked. She nodded, and for the first time in years we talked without interruption, without judgment. It was the beginning of something new. 6 months passed in a blur of self-discovery. My days developed a pleasant rhythm, beginning with sunrise walks along the shore. Tuesdays meant book club with Joyce and 5 other neighbors. Wednesdays, I volunteered reading to children at the library. Weekends often involved community gatherings at the clubhouse, a concert, or a food festival in the quaint downtown. I discovered talents I never knew I had. A painting class revealed an aptitude for watercolors. Joyce convinced me to join the community theater group, where I found joy playing a wise grandmother in their fall production, delivering lines that made the audience laugh and applaud. Friendships blossomed naturally. Frank and his wife Elaine invited me for weekly dinner and cards. Susan from my yoga class became a walking partner. These relationships felt balanced, built on mutual interest rather than obligation. Jackson visited first, asking to spend a weekend during fall break. We fished off the community pier, ate ice cream on the boardwalk, and talked honestly about the family fracture. "Dad's really angry," he admitted, "but Mom cries a lot. They found an apartment, but it's nothing like the house. Dad's business is struggling more now." "I'm sorry they're having a difficult time," I said sincerely. "But sometimes difficult times teach us important lessons." "Like not to tell your mom her room stinks." He attempted a smile. "Like remembering that how we treat people has consequences." Lily's visits became regular once a month for a weekend. She claimed to love the vacation feel of the cottage, but I suspected she also appreciated the peaceful atmosphere compared to the tension at home. Amanda made her first reluctant overture at Thanksgiving, calling to ask if I would consider joining them at their apartment. "I'd prefer to host here," I countered. "There's plenty of room, and the ocean view makes for a lovely backdrop." After hesitation, she agreed. The dinner was awkward, but civil. Amanda complimented the cottage stiffly. Greg spoke little but was polite. The children provided welcome buffers, sharing school stories and filling silence with teenage energy. As they prepared to leave, Amanda lingered in the kitchen while I packed leftovers for them. "The place is nice," she conceded. "Different than I expected." "It fits who I am now," I replied, "not who others expected me to be." She nodded, a flicker of understanding crossing her face before her walls went back up. Christmas brought another family gathering less strained than Thanksgiving. I gave the children gift cards and experience presents, tickets to concerts and sporting events. For Amanda and Greg, I offered olive branches, a framed family photo from happier times, and information about financial counseling resources John had recommended. I funded Jackson's and Lily's education directly, setting up accounts at their schools. This removed one source of leverage Greg had counted on, but ensured the children's futures remained secure, regardless of their parents' financial decisions. Greg maintained emotional distance, speaking to me mainly about practical matters. I understood his position. I had disrupted his plans and security. Forgiveness would take time if it came at all. Throughout these months, I worked on my own healing. The betrayal and hurt didn't disappear, but they lost their sharp edges. I learned that forgiveness doesn't require forgetting or pretending. Harm never occurred. It means choosing to move forward, unburdened by resentment. I met Thomas at a community lecture on travel photography. At 72, the retired professor had a gentle humor and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. Our friendship evolved slowly into something more, two people who had lived full lives, finding unexpected connection. "You're remarkable," he told me one evening as we walked along the beach at sunset. "Most people your age are settled into their patterns, afraid of change. You rebuilt your entire life." I discovered I'm braver than I thought, I admitted, and that it's never too late to require respect. The local magazine featured my cottage in their Coastal Living section after Thomas nominated me for their home showcase. The photographer captured the essence of my new life. Colorful throws, beach treasures displayed alongside family photos and wide windows embracing the ever-changing ocean view. When the magazine came out, I sent copies to Amanda and the children. It wasn't about showing off my new life, but sharing who I had become when freed from others' expectations. As spring arrived, bringing wildflowers and warmer breezes, I reflected on the lessons of this unexpected journey. Self-worth isn't determined by family titles or roles. Being a mother and grandmother doesn't require accepting mistreatment. Enabling disrespect damages both parties. By accepting Amanda's behavior, I had encouraged its continuation and prevented her from experiencing natural consequences. Financial independence provides personal power and choices at any age. Richard's planning had given me options many women of my generation lack. The courage to start over isn't limited by age. My new beginning at 67 proved that reinvention remains possible throughout life. Sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for others is to love ourselves enough to walk away from toxic situations. As I sit on my porch watching another magnificent sunset paint the sky in coral and gold, I feel profound peace with my decisions. The ocean whispers secrets of resilience and renewal with each wave. In the distance, Lily and Jackson build a bonfire for tonight's beach gathering with my neighbors. Thomas will arrive soon with his famous clam chowder. I am Marion, 68 years old, and I discovered that the final chapters of my story could be the most authentic and joyful once I found the courage to write them myself. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that others didn't understand, but that you knew was right for you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful new beginnings. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more journeys of renewal and self-discovery. Like and share if you know someone who might need encouragement to value themselves today. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's never too late to create the life you deserve.